Hi guys, Elle here. I'm very excited to be back with another Norse paganism video. And I'm really excited actually for the next few videos. I'm gonna try and do a video for all the gods and all the goddesses. And we are starting today with one of my favorites, the lady herself, Freya. And Freya's name, of course, literally meaning lady. You know, it's not a name, it's a title, the lady. I like to think of it sort of how, like, with Judaism and Kabbalah and things, like, you don't actually say the name of God out loud. You don't dare utter it, you know, it's too powerful. And that's Freya. She's powerful. And then her brother Frey, of course, means Lord, you know, lady and Lord. We'll talk about Frey at another time, though. Today it's all about Freya. That's right, it's Freya Day today. So Freya was, of course, one of the vanir hostages, as we call them, who were sent down from the aesir to live with the aesir to become active gods, right? We talked about that in the last video, when we talked about the aesir being the active gods and the vanir being sort of inactive gods. They don't take an active role in creation. They exist maybe on a higher supernal sphere or something. But yeah, they ceased to be vanir. When they did that, they became active. Freya is an asynja, you know, a female aesir goddess, and active, and gods being consciousness. So that's why I wanted to get all those other videos out there first, so I could sort of have to explain everything as we started going through the gods. I hope if some things I say in this video don't make sense, please refer back to those guys. They'll help explain certain things, what the aesir and the vanir are, what the gods are, what the giants are, and dwarves and all of that sort of stuff we went over first. I'm glad we did that. That was a good background. So for me, Freya is Venus. As in, she's the same consciousness, the same persona that the Greeks and the Romans talk about when they talk about and describe the goddesses Aphrodite and Venus. There's so many correspondencies there. It's so clearly the same consciousness performing the same functions. But I also mean that quite literally, as in Freya embodies in the planet Venus. It's her literal, physical, manifested form, at least here in our physical reality in this universe. So Freya is the planet Venus. She is the morning star. She is the evening star. And Freya herself influences us, influences humanity. And the influence of the planet Venus is one of them, a big one. I think it's funny, a criticism that I often hear given towards people who view myth as metaphor for natural processes, right? They'll say that in viewing it that way, that you've somehow killed the gods. You know, they'll say the stories then just become about like these natural phenomena, you know, the sun moves across the sky followed by the moon. But that just never made sense to me, you know, especially when you're talking about things like the planets. You know, there is still, at least I believe, there's still an active consciousness there, a self-aware consciousness there, and that's the god, alive and well. You know, and that's Freya in Venus, and she's very real. She's very real. Now, when I look at her counterparts in other pantheons, it always makes me remember why I just love Norse mythology so very much. You know, you take something like Aphrodite with all her love and passionate and romantic and beauty associations. And that's, all of these things are very much a part of Freya's personality also, and we'll talk more about those associations in a second. But what Freya has that these other versions of her don't is that she's like this badass, kick-ass warrior goddess. She's a volva. She practices seed magic and ecstatic states, and she's a shamaness, and you know, she practices shape-shifting, Freya's falcon cloak, right? But yeah, she's a pretty powerful female figure. I don't think she's ever even actually referred to as the goddess of love anywhere. There are plenty of other references, though, that associate her with love. You know, for example, her fondness of love songs or love poetry, you know. And really, what she is she is the protectress of humanity. She is the bride of humanity. Really, she is the higher self of all of mankind. She wants to hold all of us in her arms. She wants all of us to unite with her. Now, bear with me, but I believe that this is really what all the goddesses of love are really about also. Now, on the human level, when it comes to love, and when we talk about things like marriage and sex, this is how, on that human level, we express that desire for union. You know, marriage and sex are like metaphors for that greater spiritual union that we all seek, a union with our higher selves. So in a lot of ways, you know, the Lover's card in the tarot is sort of expressing that same idea, you know? So Freya is the higher self of all of us, of all of humanity. She is the bride of mankind. She is that with which we seek to unite with on a universal level. She's the guardian angel of us, of humanity. But you can see where Freya and all the love goddesses sort of get all these associations of romance and passion and marriage and sex and beauty. And like I said, she embodies the planet Venus, and thus takes her daily rides across the sky in her cat-drawn chariot. And in a way, I think that this can signify that before and after the sun comes, you know, you have to face Freya first. If you look at the sun as enlightenment, as gold, right, as wisdom, as the goal even, as the greater spiritual union that you wish to attain, I think that you can't attain that until you have united with Freya. And maybe just on a personal level, you know, your own personal Freya, your guardian angel, your hamingja, your own valkyrie. All these words are things that just sort of describe your own personal Freya, you know, your spiritual bride. Now, in all the myths and all the stories where a jotun or a giant or a dwarf even seeks to marry Freya, it doesn't happen, right? It can never happen. They are just so far outside of their capacity to merge with, you know, their higher selves. They're not quite there yet. They're just so far beyond their own capacity that it can't happen. Anyway, so Frey is the bride of mankind, but in the myths, you know, she's actually married, right? She's married to Od, or Oder, whose name means intelligence, by the way, is absolutely 100% an aspect of Odin. And he's like the Odin that is us, actually. Now, we haven't talked much about Odin just yet, but basically Odin is consciousness, you know, at all levels or at varying levels, depending on the story that's being told, really. So Od is intelligence, yes, but he's human consciousness. Actually, the higher human consciousness, our higher human soul, you know? And he is, or we are, because he is representing us here, because we're all Odin, really, right? But this Od character, this ray of Odin, this facet of Odin that is us, is on this journey, right? We're on this journey of life through the worlds. And we're away from our bride, and our bride, Freya, she weeps for us, right? In the stories it says she weeps tears of gold. Freya misses Od when he's gone and longs for him to return to her. And at the same time, I think Freya cries when we turn from, you know, our spiritual nature, from our spiritual aspirations towards something more material too, you know, when we take that higher human soul of ours and literally just turn away from her and go the other way. I think that story works beautifully on both levels. Now, I think when we turn from our path to her, away to a path towards materialistic concerns. You know, we're not on our way home to her anymore. You could say we're dragging things out at that point. We're taking the long way around. And the little wife does not like that, who's waiting at home for us to get there. So another name for Freya is Menglad, jewel happy. And the treasured jewel, of course, is none other than us, again, right? Humanity, life on Earth. It's also a reference to Freya's necklace or Freya's belt, the brisingamen, the fiery jewel of mankind. That fiery bit, of course, being our intelligence, our evolving spirit. You know, it's our intelligence which differentiates us from the animals. It's that makes us special. So Freya loves us all, you know? She wants to make us happy. She wants to bring us beauty. She wants us all to unite in her and with her. And that's why she is the goddess of love and beauty and sex. And that's why in a lot of stories she's even can be considered promiscuous. You know, first off, she sleeps with the four dwarves to obtain the brisingamen. The four dwarves being the four quarters, the four elements, the material world, right? In a way, I think she's hallowed the entire world for us. But it's through union with the four dwarves that she obtains the brisingamen and can become one with mankind. She treasures and protects that jewel, which is us. But we'll talk more about why Loki actually calls Freya promiscuous or an adulteress or whatever he calls her in Lokasena. We'll talk about that when we talk about Loki more in depthly. I think that has a lot more to do with Loki's limited perspective, with his warped point of view, than it does with anything that Freya has done wrong. Now, Freya, of course, is able to choose, as the story goes, half of all the warriors slain in battle to go to folkvang. Folkvang meaning field of the armies or field of the people. And by the way, a sessrumnir is the name of Freya's hall in folkvang, and that means roomy seats or many seats. So there's room for all of us, for all of humanity in folkvang and sessrumnir. It sounds like a very accommodating place. So I think that's what's sort of trying to be said here, though, is that it is through folkvang. You have to go to folkvang first. You have to already have been united with Freya, with your higher self, before you can attain your higher goal, which in this case would probably be Valhalla. You know, before you could enter that state of Valhalla. Now remember, death in myth isn't always necessarily an actual physical death. Myth it's poetic metaphor, right? Now I think that if you physically die, that's when you sort of go to Hell's Hall and that whole journey takes place. And that's not to say that you can't unite with your higher self or spiritually evolve after death. I believe that that is very much possible. But I think that there's a difference between dying a normal death in Norse myths and dying in battle. I think when they refer to dying in battle, it's different. When you wage war, you're waging war against yourself. That's the metaphor. It's a war you've waged against your own darkness, against your ego. But what happens there is you die to yourself, just like Odin on the tree, a sacrifice of myself to myself. And therefore, you experience a death and a birth without any change to your physical self, in this life. Now we talked about that story on a personal level, right? Merging with higher self before you can proceed to Valhalla. The story also works on kind of a macrocosmic level, a more universal level, where before all of humanity can ascend together at Ragnarok, right? When all the warriors issue forth from the halls of Valhalla. But before that, you must have first married Freya. We, as as humanity, must have embraced and become one with Freya. And lived with her in folkvang, and we can use her falcon cloak to travel the multiverse and all that goodness. This kind of thinking, actually, it's funny, it always reminds me of you know, all those new agey ideas where they talk about the hathors, who are these like misty, ethereal, higher frequency, higher dimensional beings that are said to inhabit the planet Venus. Have you guys read about this stuff? It's really interesting, and you know, I don't know. I just think that, you know, maybe that's folkvang. Could be. Anyway, I wanted to try and keep this brief, and unfortunately that means we can't sort of cover everything having to do with Freya, but I think that I kind of covered what I wanted to, kind of the important aspects anyway, as far as I'm concerned. And I love Freya. I really do. You know, I weep when I think about her love for us. And I feel like I feel it and I see it. And I will leave you with one last thought for tonight, guys. In Eagle Saga, there is a woman who in one little part says she'll never taste food again until she dines with Freya. Love you guys. Good night. I'll see you real soon. Bye.